everybody. I wanted to go over a couple things that I've been reflecting on. I feel like I had a personal revelation the other day in terms of understanding what it means to actually love yourself, and not from the egotistical standpoint or the narcissistic standpoint, right? To put some back information on what I consider Christ, right, is the light of awareness in us. The part of us that is aware. The awareness itself is a light. Consciousness itself is light. Light and consciousness are two aspects of the same phenomenon, essentially. So, the light of our awareness. So when we give something awareness, when we look at something that is unknown, which is darkness, we give it the light of awareness and we bring it into the known, we bring it into the light. And so the philosophical and spiritual understanding that's where I'm at. However, I am also at the standpoint that the metaphysical, metaphorical, the symbolic, allegorical became literal and historic, and that is an important key aspect of this. Now, what I was realizing was, and I mean, it really came from a situation where my higher self was literally telling me, hey, you're identified with your soul right now. Take a step back and be what it needs. When our soul longs for attention, external validation, things of that nature, it needs light. It needs light. And it longs for it and it desires it. And when we're in that state, what that signal is to us is essentially we are not giving our soul what it needs. You got to remember, we are not the body. We are not the soul. We possess a body and we possess a soul, but we are not it. Because of that, when we have identified with our body, we are lost. When we are identified with our soul, we are lost. And our soul is our inner world, our inner temple that contains our thoughts, that contains our emotions, that contains our memories. The soul is basically the inner temple for us, and it is the spirit that is actually aware and observing. And when we get to this kind of a back, I don't know why I was saying it that way, but when we get to this information and that's on the back burner, and then we start to realize this, when I was told that, and I just stopped and I looked at my soul and I spoke to it as if it was a separate being altogether. When it needed to be heard, I let it know that I hear you. When it needed to be seen, I let it know that I see it. When it needed to be loved, I let it know that I love it. And when you start to speak to it in that way, you are now taking the light of your awareness, directing it at it, not beyond it. And it now gives it that internal validation that it needs. It gives it the love that it needs. It gives it the light that it needs. But when we are identified with it, it is almost as if it bypasses it altogether. It's in darkness. When we identify with it, the light of awareness seems to almost originate from it rather than through it. And so we cannot be identified with it. We must be behind it and outside of it, looking through it, not from it. And once we do, we start to give it the light that it needs. And then I was reflecting that with the story of Psyche and Eros. And Eros is a symbol of the fire of Christ, the fire of the Holy Spirit, love itself, whatever. Our soul is the feminine aspect in a lot of these understandings. And so the bride being the soul, the bridegroom being Christ, the light of our consciousness, the perfect companion for your soul is you. What your soul longs for more than anything is you. It doesn't long for itself. It doesn't long for the soul. It longs for the light of Christ, which is you. It is your awareness. It longs to be seen by you. It needs to be seen by you, the real you. And until we start to recognize that we are not the soul, we can't actually be what the soul needs, and it will seek another from outside when the divine union is actually from within. And that is where it all kind of came together for me, where we really only kind of get that insight when we disidentify with it. If we are fully engrossed and identified and in, like, we're basically in a trance to where we think we are it, and yet we are not. And so we have to realize that, and by doing that, we start to actually be able to mold it to what the awareness actually wants, not to what the soul wants, not to what the body wants, not to what the world wants, but what the awareness behind it all wants. But we can only truly start to see that by growing our awareness, by disidentifying with all these things. And do you know how the higher self essentially gets this to happen? If we ain't going to do it on our own, it essentially makes us suffer. Because suffering is one way to disidentify with things, because you just don't want it anymore. You're fed up, you're done. And so I thought this was absolutely, for me, this was revolutionary. This is like, that's what it means to love myself. It doesn't mean to love the formless thing that comes naturally, right? But the soul that is longing for love, it cannot love itself without it becoming egotistical, narcissistic, and those type of things. But when we disidentify it and we remove the light, we remove our awareness back, the light can now go through it. We can now see our soul. We can now bring the depths of the subconscious and the unconscious and bring it up. But the only way we could actually do that is by recognizing that the source of who we are is so much deeper than the soul, and that we aren't it. We are to become one with it, right? But we are not it. And I don't know, that was really, really big for me. And I wonder if it's something like that might be helpful to other people, or I'm curious as to what other people's experience has been and how they kind of look at that, given the fact that the spirit is most further behind the soul, and the soul is the means by which we express, not our true identification in and of itself. So, by the way, peace out, guys.